Today we're tapping into the mind of the universe as we have fun with fractals.
Enter a world of enchantment, of enlightenment, megsmagicalmansion.
Come, whoever you are, to Meg's Magical Mansion,
A virtual guest house for spiritual wayfarers.
a place where the ordinary becomes magical,
Where wisdom is yours for the asking.
and where your higher nature is just a wish away. Thanks for joining us here today at the Magical Mansion. I'm Meg with my fluffy assistant, Alice Poopers, and of course, the charming Miss Parfait.
Charmed.
And today we have an extra exciting episode. I've been waiting years to do this episode.
She really has. She's been walking around the mansion talking about this topic for years.
And the main reason I haven't done it sooner is because, frankly, it's very intimidating. I'm intimidated by the topic because we are going to talk about fractals. And you might wonder, why is a chaos magician and somebody who's into witchcraft, occultism, and spiritualism going to talk about fractals? Well, fractals are a perfect blend and a meeting place where science, math, spirituality come together to help us understand how the universe works.
Yeah, exactly. Fractals are fascinating. And fractals can be found in nature. We see fractals along coastlines, in trees, and snowflakes.
Yep.
All these are different representations of patterns that can repeat themselves, both small and big. And when you really dig into fractals, it's really interesting because you see similarities in different structures throughout nature. And what's also fascinating about fractals, and Meg has turned me on to this, is that you can actually mathematically create fractals.
Exactly, and we're going to look at some of these kinds of fractals as well today. Fractals like that we've created, like the Mandelbrot set, and we'll talk a little bit about Benoit Mandelbrot, and most of all my favorite fractal, the Buddhabot.
Yes, the Buddhabot.
The Buddhabot is so interesting. It is just it's an interesting fractal. It's a fascinating shape, but it is a shape that we see throughout cultures and artwork all over the world. And we're gonna stick around because you will not believe some of the places we're gonna find the Buddhabot.
Just to give you a little taste of that, the Mona Lisa is considered to be one of the examples of the Buddhabot.
There you go. So we're going to show it to you.
I thought it was just street food that you bought somewhere. But she actually enlightened me to understand that the Buddhabot is a representation of fractals. And that's actually one of the questions we're going to be asking, is what is the nature of fractals, and is there a universal purpose, or is there a universal fractal nature to everything, which I think is really interesting to explore. And we're also going to ask that question, using fractal cosmology, like, can they help us understand the universe? What is the true nature of the universe? And what is our place in it? These are questions that fractals may be able to help us answer.
And somebody who was on the forefront of that we're going to talk about today was Carl Jung, and we're going to talk about the idea of the unus mundus, the one mind, one world where all is one. And I do believe we are all connected. A lot of us, because we're here in a physical form, in a physical body right now, maybe don't feel that connection as much, but we are all connected to the universal mind. And I think that fractals really help us understand that connection to the universe and feel it.
And that's something that we're going to definitely explore today, kind of that fusion of all these different areas, math, physics, and spirituality, and how it all relates back to fractals. You want to stay tuned for this episode. It's definitely fascinating.
So fractals. Why fractals? Why am I so interested in fractals? I'm going to tell you, for one reason, I've always been interested in that intersection where science and spirituality collide, and that is definitely fractals. And I also think it relates to occultism and witchcraft because fractals really illustrate that premise of as above, so below. So let's dive in. And today I'm going to keep it simple and call this Fractals Light. But if you want more information and dive deeper into fractals, if you want more of the math, science, or spirituality, any of those three areas, let me know. I'd be happy to do more episodes. So fractals are never-ending patterns. They are endless, and they repeat at different scales and sizes. Fractals create complex, intricate, never-ending shapes. They kind of remind me of the quote from C.S. Lewis in his final book in the Narnia series, The Last Battle, where he says, "The further in you go, the bigger it gets," as a way of describing heaven. People also say with fractals things like further up and further in. Things like fractals are bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. You have to think about this idea of an expanding scale. Fractals show us ever-increasing detail the more closely we look at them, and they have these self-similar patterns that look the same whether you're looking at them from far back at the bird's eye view or zooming in microscopically. Because that small part of the fractal, when magnified, will resemble the whole, and self-similar shapes are a big part of fractals. And fractals are absolutely fascinating because they live in a space between our traditional dimensions. So fractals have a fractal dimension that is greater than their topological dimension. So if a straight line has a topological dimension of 1, a fractal line would have a topological dimension or fractal dimension that is higher, say 1.2, 1.3. But the closer it gets to the second dimension, without reaching it, the more fractal it is. So something that has a fractal dimension of 1.7, 1.8 is very fractal in nature. A great example of this is Jackson Pollock's painting. He's the famous artist from the 20th century. And his artwork is very well known because of its fractal quality. But if you look at his early paintings, when he was still developing as an artist, those early paintings, when they're analyzed for their fractal dimension, have a lower fractal dimension of like 1.1 to 1.2. But as Jackson Pollock developed his technique and really explored the fractal nature of his art, his later paintings have fractal dimensions much closer to 2, like a 1.8 or a 1.7. And you can see as he developed as an artist, he really developed his eye for creating fractals. And, fractals have been around for always. We just didn't know what to call them. But we've always seen fractals in nature. Things that have that self-similarity, that show repeating patterns, that have that sort of infinite complexity, and demonstrate a fractal dimension. And if you look at something like trees, not only are the branches themselves very fractal in nature, you look at little bits of branches and they look like little tiny trees. But also, there's a mirroring effect with trees, where the structure of the tree above ground mirrors the root structure that is below the ground. You also see fractals in things like pine cones, snowflakes, the Coke snowflakes, a very familiar fractal. You see it in plants. Anytime you see a plant that has a spiraling leaf pattern, a spiral phyllotoxy, that is a fractal. You see it in copper crystals and in rivers. You see it in the veins of leaves. And you even see it in foam bubbles. But one of my favorite natural fractals are coastlines, because coastlines are a wonderful example of the farther in you go, the bigger it gets. And coastlines are fractal in nature because of the way you would have to measure a coastline. If you had, for example, an island and you wanted to measure the perimeter around the island, well, the smaller the unit of measurement you use, the bigger a measurement you're actually going to get. Let me explain. If you measure around your island using, let's say, kilometers, you're going to get a number of how many kilometers around it is. But if you measure it using centimeters, you're going to get a much bigger number for your answer, because you're actually going to be measuring more of the island, more minutely, those little details as the coast goes in and out. Whereas if you have kilometers. You're just going to kind of go roughly from point A to B, that kilometer, and then the next kilometer. So you'll miss some of the intricacies of the coastline. But if you measure it with something much smaller like centimeters, you will get a bigger number, a bigger measurement of the island. And the smaller unit of measurement you use to measure something, the bigger it's going to be. In the 20th century, we began to see fractals in mathematics, and we began to actually see the use of the term fractal. Fractals were really sort of discovered and named in the 20th century. And it was a combination of mathematical theory and the advent of computers that really led to the discovery of fractals. But Pierre Fatou and Gaston Julia were early 20th century pioneers. But most of us are familiar with Benoit Mandelbrot and his Mandelbrot set. And he was working at IBM in the 1980s. And he was the one who gave us the very high quality visualizations of the Mandelbrot set. But the set was actually first defined by Robert W. Brooks and Peter Metelsky back in the late 1970s. But Mandelbrot is the one who sort of coined that term fractals, thinking of how these shapes live between our traditional dimensions. They live in the fractions of the dimensions. And the actual Mandelbrot set is a very simple equation that, when repeated in the complex plane, reveals a complex pattern of colored and black shapes. And this is a shape that some have called the thumbprint of God. It is complex, it is self-replicating, and it exhibits an infinitely complex boundary that reveals ever-increasing details the more you dive in and magnify it. And if you're interested in this little equation, I'll put it over here. It's very easy, and it's not that hard to plug the numbers in. Now, the Mandelbrot set varies the C value in this equation, and people also have been having a lot of fun creating these Julia sets, and to create these, you vary the Z value in the equation. But looking for the sequence that remains bounded, meaning there is no point at which the set will escape into infinity, that creates the black area of the set. And the colors show how long before each set you put into the equation escapes into infinity. But I think my favorite mathematically created fractal has to be the Buddhabrot. So rather than use the colors, this uses the trajectories of the points that escape the Mandelbrot set. And it gives us sort of a reverse visualization. And this shape it creates resembles many sacred images that we find all over the world. We find it in Hinduism, Buddhism, we find it in Mayan culture, we see it even in great artwork. Which leads one to think about the concept of the unus mundus and the connection to the one great universal mind. And that, my friends, is where we delve into some fractal cosmology. Is our universe fractal in nature? Carl Jung, who was the Swiss psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, he was into anthropology, archaeology, literature, philosophy, and, of course, psychology. He, working along with physicist Wolfgang Pauli, kind of came up with this concept of archetypes, and the Jungian archetypes refer to universal ideas and patterns, thoughts or images that are present in the collective consciousness of all of humankind. And these archetypes are thought to be the basis of some of the common themes that we see in all kinds of stories and myths from all over the world. The idea of the mother, the child or the innocent one, the trickster, the great flood, those themes that recur over and over in so many different cultures. Which gives us that concept of the unus mundus, the one great universal mind, a unified reality from which everything derives. And Jung was very interested in synchronicity, events that coincide in time and appear meaningfully related, yet somehow have no apparent real solid connection, a coinky-dink, a synchronicity. And the archetype is an expression of that one universal mind. And the synchronicity appears because the observer and whatever the crazy connected synchronicity that just happened, both are stemming from that one great universal mind, the unus mundus. We just don't always know that's what's going on. So is this why we see the shape of the Buddha brought in so many different places and cultures all around the globe? And is the Buddha brought a visual representation of the unus mundus, that great universal mind? Are the patterns we see in nature, in the universe, including those locked in our own subconscious minds, are they manifestations of a deeper underlying order? Are the things that we think of as luck, coincidence, or synchronicitous really just the work of the universal mind, connected in a myriad of ways that our feeble little human brains can't even grasp? Fractals are also a part of chaos theory, and chaos theory explores the transitions, which are often very unexpected and surprising, between order and disorder. Chaos theory looks at that sensitive dependence on initial conditions, which is a fancy way of saying the butterfly effect. You know, that idea that a really small, tiny little thing, like a butterfly flapping its wings, can affect a much, much bigger thing like a weather pattern or a weather system. So small, tiny changes in the starting point of a chaotic system can lead to huge results. And chaos theory also deals with the underlying order concept, the idea that there is order within disorder, and that even though sometimes things just seem really random, there are systems underlying them and patterns underlying things that seem really crazy, out of control, or chaotic. Things like weather patterns, or the ups and downs of the stock market, or population growth, or even the states of our own brains. It's about the infinite patterns and complexities of nature as well. So you see how chaos theory ties in with fractals in a big way. And I personally believe that while we are here having our earthly experience, we are separated from the universal mind in this body that we're roaming around the planet in. I do believe in reincarnation. I believe we come many times to learn lessons and to have these chances to develop here on our own when we are disconnected. Do we realize that we're part of this great universal mind? Do we realize that the person we think we are is really meaningless? A lot of this work that Carl Jung was doing was working on breaking down your ego. And I think it's important for us to realize that if this is one of many lifetimes you've lived, the important thing is the you, the real you that's underneath, the culmination of all the lives you've led, whether you're a young soul or an old soul. We're here to learn our lessons, to help the universe pay karmic debt and maintain balance. These are opportunities here to have a lifetime and to be here in a human form. And I think it's important that we take care of our bodies. They are the vehicles we're here to ride around in. But I also think it's important for us to try to be open to that universal mind, be in touch with it, and let it work through us as we're here in this 3D life that we're living. And this is why fractals are so interesting to me, because I think it helps us understand the universal mind and see our connection to it. You're not alone in your body. You're not alone here on this planet. You are connected to the universe, to the mind of God, the mind of the universe. You are part of it. That's why you're a co-creator with the universe, because you are part of it. And you can learn to work with the energy of the universe to help you manifest all the things you need to do here in this 3D life. and fulfill your purpose and listen to the voice of the universe, the Unus Mundus. So that's my take on fractals. I hope you all have enjoyed it. If you would like to know more about the math, science, psychology, or spirituality of fractals, let me know in the comments.
Whew. You know, that was a lot of information about fractals, and we know we threw a lot at you, so thank you for hanging in there.
Hey, but we really barely scratched the surface, so if you want a part 2 and go even deeper, let us know. I mean, I could go on this all day.
She really can.
I'm very interested in this topic. And you know, I love it because you can take it as deep as you want to, or you can really just admire the fractals that you see in nature, like the underneath side of a mushroom. Look at your hat. There's fractals there. They're everywhere. So you know what we need to do?
What?
Let's have a contest.
Oh, I love contests.
We haven't had a contest in a long
It
time.
has been a while.
All right, here's what we're going to do. You guys go out and find a picture in nature of a fractal, a seashell, a lightning strike, I don't know, a spider web. Find a fractal in nature. Take a picture of it. Email it to us right here. admin@megsmagicalmansion.com. Don't forget the admin @ part. And then we'll take all the pictures. Whoever sends us a picture, make sure it's one you don't mind if we share, because we might share some of them. But then we will do a contest. We'll put all the names on the random wheel name picker, and we'll pick a winner for a $25 Amazon gift card. So get your entries in by this date, which I don't know what it is, but when I know what it is, I will put it here, because this is when I'm going to close the contest and post a short and let you know who the winner is.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Good luck. Get your entries in. And I want to see all the fractals you can find in the world around you. There's so many easy, simple little things you can look at. So good
When
luck.
you start paying attention to all the patterns around you, you'll be amazed at how many there are and how many similarities there are in the patterns you find.
Look at your sweater. I think your sweater's
Right?
fractal in nature. I mean, really. So guys, we can't wait to see. Thank you for joining us here today. I hope you had fun with fractals. And don't forget, in the words of Buddha, 1,000 candles can be lit from a single candle.
And the life of that candle will never be shortened.
Happiness never decreases by being shared.
So thank you for sharing your time and attention with us here at Meg's Magical Mansion.
Till next time,
Toodles.
get those entries in.
Find those fractals.